This is the scene of the crime. A crime of passion, filmed in a way you have never seen before, and as no one else would dare attempt. But the screen's master of suspense, the producer-director who shocked the world with Psycho. This is the apartment of a man named Jeffries, a news photographer whose beat used to be the world. Right now, his world has shrunk down to the size of this window. He's been watching the people across the way. Nobody seems to pull their blinds during a hot spell like this. He knows a lot about them by now. Too much, perhaps. For instance, down there on the second floor, the woman pacing about. He calls her Miss Lonely Hearts. So lonely that even death seems like a friend. These are the newlyweds, on a honeymoon no one will ever forget. He calls her Miss Hearing Aid, an artist of a very odd and strange art. The songwriter, who plays the same melody over and over again. A genius or insane? This is the traveling salesman and his invalid wife. Out of their arguments and nagging comes a weird kind of love. Miss Torso, the body beautiful. That is, viewed from a safe distance.
Those are just a few of my neighbors. First I watched them just to kill time, but then I couldn't take my eyes off them, just as you won't be able to.
And you won't be able to take your eyes off the glowing beauty of Grace Kelly, who shares the heart and curiosity of James Stewart in this story of a romance shadowed by the terror of a horrifying secret.
Welcome to the Super 70 Podcast, episode 37, Rear Window. I will be using the 2020 Kino Lorber Blu-ray of Rear Window. If you hit play on the main titles now, this podcast should sync with the rest of the film. Universal title sequence is up now, and as we wait for the credits to roll by, I want to welcome into the Hacienda once again, Mr. Dave Anderson.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I'm excited to be here.
Excellent, excellent. Now, I always like to start every movie off as I can. When was the first time you saw Rear Window, and what did you think?
Oh, I thought it must have been, longer ago than I want to admit, probably 40 years ago, on videotape at my grandparents', because, to a large degree, they are one of the reasons that I got into collecting film, because they lived up in Northeast Nevada, so the cable didn't exist. So they had purchased a lot of videotapes of movies that they liked. So Rear Window was one of the first ones. It was an old movie even then. So imagine, 40 years ago. But it was immediately pretty striking to me. And I just enjoyed the bejeebers out of it.
So I want to read this from the well-made film Rear Window by John Fowle, which is an excellent description. Hitchcock pans counterclockwise around the courtyard outside Jeff's window while Jeff is doing other things no less than 6 times. As the film begins, the credits roll are raised, paralleling the raising curtains of the theater. When the credits are through, the camera starts to move through the opened middle window, but only momentarily. Hitchcock cuts to a shot of a cat climbing the stairs of the courtyard outside Jeff's window. It is interesting that Hitchcock cuts here to the cat rather than to maintaining the shot through the window and into the pan around the courtyard. Jeff is not yet awake, and Hitchcock does not seem to feel obligated yet to create the sense of looking with someone through the window. The camera follows the cat up the stairs, and when the cat has departed, climbs the stairs up the fire escape outside the building in which the composer lives. The scene is reminiscent of the opening of Psycho, where the camera leads us through an open window into a comfy leather chair and indicates to us we are to sit down and watch Marion and Sam. In Psycho, we fly into the story like a bird. Here, we prowl into the neighborhood like a stray cat. The camera leads onto a path from the ground up the stairs and up the ladder of a building to the elevated spaces we will be studying for the rest of the film. This is Hitchcock's introduction to the building. Then the camera, taking its point of departure from the exit of the cat, scans the buildings across the way, giving us a general introduction to the topography of the set. It does not, at this point, interest itself at any of the apartments precisely. This is our most sustained view of the apartment building complex, the whole set in general. It is one of the few times that we get a long enough shot to realize that the building across the way is 5 stories. Otherwise, the narrative concentrates on the first 3 floors. The camera, which since the cut to the cat has been in counterclockwise pan, finally arrives on the meticulously arranged drop of sweat on Jeff's forehead before going on to show us all the visual clues in Jeff's apartment. The cast, the smashed camera, the photos of the crash that explain Jeff's background and persistent situation. Hitchcock cuts to the thermometer to establish the climate the story takes place in, and then, using the thermometer as a point of departure, takes us on a second counterclockwise tour of the building, again without the benefit of Jeff's company since he is still sleeping. The purpose of the second pan is to deepen our introduction to the building across the way. Now we are going to take a closer look. This time the camera stops to examine several of the lives in the apartment, having, in our first tour of the set, been introduced to the general locale. We meet the composer, the older couple that are asleep on the fire escape, and Miss Torso. Interestingly, there is one cut in the pan that allows Hitchcock to skip the Thorwald's apartment, as though he were saving them for a more precise choreographed introduction, or perhaps suggesting that the Thorwald story is so close to the inner workings of Jeff's mind that he does not want to introduce them except when Jeff is awake. Only after having taken us through this double tour of the apartment complex does Hitchcock wake up Jeff and start to look at the apartment through his perspective.
I don't know if it was my first Hitchcock movie to watch, but it very well may have been.
Psycho, usually for the after generation of the people that were watching movies after Hitchcock died, usually Psycho is the first one that they see. So you were out there in the middle of nowhere. Where was the nearest movie theater? Was it Salt Lake City or Elko? Or?
Elko, which was about an hour and 10 minutes, actually more like 60 minutes or probably more like 50 because you can drive way too fast on I-80. But... So yeah, we'd go regularly, but there, when we were not working on the farm and there was downtime, and if for whatever reason the satellite that they did have wasn't working, it'd be throw a videotape in, and this was definitely one of them I saw multiple times.
One of the glories of VHS. We've got Jimmy Stewart in full form here, watching Miss Torso in that scandalously bent over shot there, which I forgot to mention. When I saw Rear Window the first time, it was last August.
Oh, really?
On the big screen, on 35 millimeter digital. I mean, it's not film, right? But this was a rather at that size in the screen. There were people in the audience that kind of ahemed and gasped and shifted in their chairs.
Oh, sure.
And I can imagine in 1954 what that did. So that was the first time I saw Rear Window. You've been aching to get me to watch it for years.
Well, I didn't realize that was your first time to see it, because I thought this was Hitchcock's got so many classics. You could probably almost classify his entire output as classic to a degree, but for most film goers and even normies, I would imagine that Rear Window is broadly entertaining enough, yet still retaining enough of his signatures that it's a good blend of the popular entertainment, which he was always. I mean, he was a popular filmmaker,
hugely,
of course.
Hugely.
And it wasn't one of those where he had highbrow, even though his intent was highbrow in some stuff, I imagine, or whether he knew it or not. take Vertigo or Psycho and some of the layers in there. I'm sure he tended it,
but he didn't make it for a highbrow audience.
Right. It was for popular entertainment. And this is one of those, it's almost a platonic ideal of a Hitchcock film to me. You know, I think that the most perfect version of that, in my opinion, to me, is North by Northwest. But this is a close second. So I was just kind of surprised that you hadn't seen it before. Because I thought most everybody had seen this and probably 4 other, especially with as many flicks as you've seen.
Yeah, you know, when I was a kid, and sorry to take us out of the moment here, since this is Jeff scratching down his cast, which is a sort of sexual reference here when he finally finds relief when he scratches his itch. When I was a kid, of course, I had cable, and Hitchcock was so popular, and in the popular mindset, I'd seen The Birds, I'd seen Marnie, I'd seen Psycho was probably the first one I saw. I'd seen Psycho after I saw Psycho 2.
That's not the way you're supposed to do it.
No, but that was, you know, we saw Psycho 2, and you're like, oh, okay, so there's a first one, and then you see the first one, you're like, oh, this is highly superior to the second one. But regardless of that, I'd seen many other. I didn't see Vertigo until about 20 years ago. I had seen some of like the what's the one with Peter Lorre that everybody loves, and I love too. The man
who knew too much.
The Man Who Knew Too Much. Yeah.
Well, that was the first version,
right? Not the 50s colorized version that he redid. Yeah. So I was familiar, and of course, I had seen a ton of his television shows.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So
but you certainly knew who he was.
I certainly knew who he was, and I'd seen an enormous amount of, like, I remember when I was in high school, when you could record your own messages on your answering machines. I faked a Hitchcock voice, like, you know, I'm sorry, everyone is out. And I put on that deep baritone because he was such a popular person. He'd only been dead for about, 5 or 6 years by that point. And he had such a towering persona. But I remember being in college, and I was reading a book on sexual violence in film. And, chapter 1 was Brian De Palma, and chapter 2 was Alfred Hitchcock. And I mean, to be honest with you, like, that turned me off of both of those directors for a very long time. They weren't the only ones, Abel Ferrara was
right. They're not unique in that regard, but that's part of their trademarks.
Sure, yeah, and it just wasn't, slasher films and everything. And to a certain extent, I think a lot of that was, either wishful thinking or misguided targeting, or having an opinion which is valid, but I didn't particularly agree with, or raising something that was worth talking about. But I really, after reading some really rough paragraphs on both of those two men, I just thought, man, I'm
done.
I'm done. I don't want to. And I had seen De Palma's, like, pretty much all of De Palma's work,
especially his big ones.
When I was younger. Yes, Dressed to Kill and all.
Just the appropriate age.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I don't think Dressed to Kill before you're 15 is a good idea, and probably not until you're
Dude,
25.
I saw Nancy Allen fully nude before I was 10 years old.
Right.
Multiple times. And that's not good on your psyche. But
it might be fine.
When you're in when you're in college and you're reading such, you're impressionable youth and so forth, and people are saying, this is really exploiting women, is kind of piggish, like we had talked about De Palma a couple of years ago. And so forth. It formulates you. And I thought, yeah, I'm really done with those.
Right.
And particularly since I knew what Rear Window was about, because it is in pop culture, I wasn't particularly apt. Like, I get the brilliant idea of casting Jimmy Stewart as a voyeur. Like, that was genius casting.
Right.
Right. Everybody's dad. And the guy from fucking Christmas movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Oh, okay.
And It's a Wonderful Life.
A Wonderful Life.
I thought you were
talking about Raymond Burr. I'm like, right. What, Ironside? He was a lawyer. Now he's a killer. It's crazy.
We have to go into Raymond Burr here in a little bit. I love Raymond Burr. But so anyway, I recognize that genius, but I wasn't particularly interested in reviewing any Hitchcock for a very long time after that. But when I saw, I know that you're a reasonably large Hitchcock fan.
Yeah. I'm certainly not even close to
some people,
and probably most people listening to it. But yeah, I can't think of a single film of his that I actively dislike. Now, I have not seen all of his later stuff, such as Topaz, right? Frenzy. Because I've not had a lot of interest, because the general consensus, at least the general critical consensus, there's a pretty major drop-off right?
That's what Tarantino says.
I don't think he's unique like that, right? But this, from his end of his British period through about the mid-'60s, I could watch any one of them.
Yeah.
Pretty much any time. And yeah, they're varying quality, but I still like them all. Like even To Catch a Thief, which is not great, but boy, I could watch that right now.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I, right after I watched this, I watched it again with her, and she liked it. And then we watched Dial M for Murder, which I love, also a Grace Kelly film.
Of course.
And I watched Family Plot a couple years ago because it was on the Criterion Channel. And Topaz is the one with, I think, Paul Newman and Julie Andrews. I actually liked that quite a bit.
I've heard it's good, but it's just one of those that, especially when I was really getting into it, at that point, it hadn't been reclaimed.
Right.
It's kind of like Vertigo was generally considered one of his biggest misfires for decades. And then all of a sudden it was vaulted into the critical consciousness as, an absolute masterpiece. I don't know if I necessarily enjoyed it as much as those critics, but I do think it's very fascinating and I could watch it. Just I don't enjoy it as much as some of the others, but that's kind of going off topic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was a Vertigo fan, for a very long time, and then it toppled Citizen Kane in the AFI, and I was like, fuck that movie.
Sight and sound.
So anyway, I didn't realize that this was a bottle movie when I went to the theater.
You didn't realize it was what? It
was a bottle movie?
Explain the term. I don't quite understand.
Well, it's kind of like a bottle episode on TV where you stay in one room the entire time.
Oh, okay.
We were all on one set.
I haven't heard of my ignorance. I'm sorry. I just hadn't heard it referred to. Yeah, this is almost a stage play.
Right.
Yeah. With the notable exception of this would be the most elaborate stage play ever.
Right.
Because it's astounding what he created here, just from the architecture. I mean, this is all real. They built this all in a studio, so he had complete control, which makes a lot of sense with his personality. But it is just fascinating. I'm sure in the book that you were referencing, they go into the construction of the studio. What they buried 20 feet deep?
Yeah.
For the first floor.
They did a lot of Citizen Kane like shit in this movie. And in watching it, some of the shots I cannot believe, considering how large the camera rigs that he was using, considering he was using Technicolor, which we all know in the 50s was nice, but it was a complete pain in the ass.
Yeah. But this almost struck me as, he got so good at what he was doing. He's like, okay, how am I going to challenge myself? Kind of like Rope. How am I going to challenge myself? Oh, I know. I will never make a visible cut in the movie. So it was more of an exercise in technique and skill that seemed to attract him.
Yeah, what can I do?
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like Rope, but, the camera just slides left and slides right and slides up and slides down. It doesn't do very much. That's not a knock on the film.
Right.
It's very effective for what it does, but nothing like this.
It's not 1917, and compared to what I think the accomplishments here are, it's not as impressive, but it's a hell of a try and pretty audacious.
Yeah. Oh, this is incredible.
And the Newlyweds.
Oh,
I'm sorry. We skipped over so much. We've been jabbering about yammering. Yeah. But I wanted to get to, there's the initial shot of L.B. Jeffries when he's asleep, and it goes through his personal effects, right? Well, not his personal effects, but things that define him. You got the broken camera, you got the car crash image, and then you pan over to, the picture of the beautiful blonde that's framed in negative, it's the camera negative, and then it slides over and shows the actual
the
image.
Positive.
And I don't know when I saw it that I kind of recognized it as what it is. Pretty obvious, but this kind of establishes his personality and character and his positives and his flaws. It's so economical in 30 seconds at most, maybe more like 15.
Yeah,
I mean, because you could just see those images and draw a story about the individual that is pretty consistent with his behavior and perspective.
And very recreatable. Like I remember seeing that in a number of films. And I wrote down 3 of them. I can't find them right now, but one of them was that stupid Bruce Willis movie where he takes Kim Basinger.
Blind Date?
Yes, Blind Date with Kim Basinger. They do that in the beginning of that movie.
And John Larroquette, you can't forget that.
No, John Larroquette was in that movie? No, I did not.
And there she is. Sorry.
Yep, there she is herself.
Mount Rushmore. Princess Grace.
So I also didn't realize that basically Sliver was a remake of Rear Window.
I've never seen Sliver.
Okay.
So based on what I've seen, that does make sense, but I didn't know that. I know that they remade Rear Window, in the 80s? No, the 90s with Christopher Reeve?
Christopher Reeve, was it?
Yeah, because they took his...
I thought it was Steve Guttenberg.
Well, they may have done that too, but remember there was like a TV version where Christopher Reeve was in his, it was post-accident.
Oh, no, I didn't know this.
Yeah, and they redid it, and I think I only saw it like when it was on. Right, and if I remember right, and I might be wrong, but I think I'm right, is that it was a television movie.
That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, it really, it kind of works perfectly. It's perfect casting under the incredibly unfortunate circumstances, but it was somewhat compelling. And I thought they remade, or somewhat of an adaptation with Shia LaBeouf, maybe back in the 2000s.
Oh, I'm completely not interested in that.
I'm not either, but it's one of those where it's such a good flick. I can see where the appeal would be, but I don't know if it would ever be a good idea. Although, in my mind, this, to a large degree, a lot of the things that are happening, you could apply to present-day internet culture.
Well, yeah, I see that.
L.B. Jeffries is kind of a Redditor.
yeah. A little bit of an incel?
Well, I wouldn't say that, but it's just one of those that he definitely has a sense of superiority, and he's more than willing to project and comment upon everybody else's flaws.
Yes.
And... the only thing that's holding him back is this damned unfortunate problem, which I think he does recognize is his own fault, because they never explain how he broke his leg, but from the pictures, you know how he broke his leg.
Well, that and the fact that he won't talk about it, because he's embarrassed about.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's sorry, I'm distracted by Grace Kelly again.
Yeah, the photograph of Grace Kelly and Audrey Hepburn backstage of the Oscars, every time I see that on social media, it's always got like 200,000 likes.
Yeah, you're dealing with a very small percentage of the physically gifted got touched. Right and left hand, I guess.
So back to what you were saying.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, about Jeff. I mean, the whole movie is a subjective exercise. And we see what Jeff sees. We don't see much else. And we see his reaction. And that's very much like the Kuleshov Effect is this entire film in a bottle, right?
Okay.
Because you're going to Jeff and you're going to what Jeff sees. And you're going to Jeff's reaction. Then you're going to what Jeff sees. So, that's the Kuleshov in a nutshell. But I've never seen a Kuleshov that lasts 2 hours.
Right.
So it has to be like the most sustained Kuleshov I think I've ever seen in cinema.
It is, yeah. By default.
Right. So this movie is best when it is a silent film, in my opinion. And of course, Hitch made silent films. He was one of the best at silence.
Mm-hmm. Why do you say that is best as a silent film?
Well, because I think all the best moments in the film are without dialogue.
Okay, yeah. So the visual mastery, you can definitely watch this without sound and get a lot out of it. Okay.
Yeah, you can see what he is seeing and then seeing his reaction.
I wasn't sure if it was a criticism of the dialogue or just a praise of the filmmaking.
No, I think it's a praise of the filmmaking. Like, I don't give a shit about Grace Kelly talking about the champagne and when the dinner's coming over, but I can infer that just by looking at it.
Well, yeah, you don't care about the details.
Right. And she got it from, but I don't know. I'm on the seesaw when it comes to, I'm taking her side because Jeff's being such an ass.
Right.
Right, in the relationship. But at the same time, she's kind of this dainty person that doesn't belong in, like, she's kind of Fifth Avenue. And I don't want this to sound classist.
You can.
But it a little bit elitist.
Well, certainly, right? But, both the characters are, not flawed so much that they kill their spouse, unlike, some famous lawyers turned murderers, I guess. But it is one of those that these are nuanced characters. And that's the interesting part, is that from Jeffrey's perspective, and then when lovely Grace has him start the story over again as to what's going on, nobody else in there is a complicated, right? All the other characters that they observe are, okay, the torso, Miss Torso is blah. The composer is blah. And over the course of the film, the initial presentation of them is not necessarily what they end up being.
Right.
So I think every character in the film changes to a degree, right? And I don't necessarily need that, but it is kind of nuanced filmmaking. Because, Grace Kelly's character in this film could very easily be just a an elitist, a privileged young woman who's got everything handed to her because she's absolutely stunning and apparently quite well off. But it gets established she's good at her job, right? She talks about how she wants to follow Jeff around, right? And he just poo-poos that. Probably pretty reasonably so, frankly. But she doesn't ever turn into a damsel in distress, at least not a helpless one.
Right. No, she has a lot of agency in the letter, in the final act.
She gets herself in trouble because she gets herself in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So it is one of those that Miss Lonely Hearts here. You think of her in this image. I'm sorry, we're going to the part where she's imagining, a date.
Mm.
And she even has a storyline that changes throughout the entire movie.
God, my heart just goes out to her just watching her go through these emotions.
It's really, very relatable.
Yeah.
There are that's probably one of the more modern components now. When I saw this again more recently, that's when I started equating this to almost applicable to internet culture, right? Because instead of watching television, which is what you could have applied this to, 40 years ago when I saw it, you could definitely apply this to people on the internet. And there's a shit ton of lonely people on the internet, right, that go through not necessarily setting up a fake date and all that, although metaphorically,
my God, they're hiring AI firms to create girlfriends on their phone. I mean, they're bringing
of course,
Her to life,
right.
Her by Spike Jonze. So I completely get that.
But the original point was, I give it a lot of credit for the nuance for each character and how they are not necessarily what they appear at the beginning.
Yeah, everything gets more and more complicated.
It really does.
Yeah. And that's how people are.
Which goes back to what we were talking about Grace Kelly. Is she elitist? Yeah, you could actually qualify her as that. But you never get the sense that she feels that she's better than anybody, right? She just tries to connect with people in her own way. Now, granted, she may not have all the correct tools to connect with Jeffries as he's expecting, although obviously he can't be pleased, at least not for a while, because, it's like, what else are you going to ask for? I mean, look what she does. Look what she is. Look how she acts.
And there's also a bit of subjective criticism to it, too, because I can criticize her for being that kind of elitist. I remember listening to an interview with Cindy Crawford on the Mark Maron podcast, What the Fuck? And she was first of all, came across as a very intelligent person.
Yeah, I think she's always been considered fairly bright.
Right. And I've seen interviews with her before, and I've never thought that she's a dumb blonde model or a brunette model, whatever thing. But when she came across like really intelligent in that
pretty
interview,
savvy. And
then one of the things that she said was astounding was, don't fucking hate me for the way that I look, because I was born this way. Mm-hmm. I've had no plastic surgery. And what you're really criticizing is what other people want to see.
Yeah.
They're buying a magazine with my face on it. That's not my fault. No. They're paying me for other people's wants and desires.
Sure.
So I completely get that from Kelly's portrayal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a criticism of myself when I initially had that reaction. But all that criticism that I had melts away at the end when she's got the travel book and then she puts it down and she grabs
it's great. It's
Vogue.
A great moment. It's fantastic.
And typical Hitchcock, like ending on that.
Yeah, it's pretty sly humor. And it's like, you know what? She's the smart one at the bunch.
So this is based on It Had to Be a Murder, 1942, by Cordell Woolrich, a.k.a. William Irish. John Michael Hayes wrote the screenplay Rear Window. He wrote Shadow of a Doubt, To Catch a Thief, and The Trouble with Harry.
Okay. So a frequent collaborator.
Yeah. And Jimmy Stewart did, what, 3?
Oh my gosh, this is a great shot. I apologize for interrupting.
No, that's all right.
So this is the scene here where Mr. Thornburg and his wife, who's not an invalid as the trailer stated, but the wall that separates them.
Yeah.
And it's pretty obvious and on the nose, but it's exceptionally well done.
It's like the two windows or two eyes.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the movie as opposed to the conversation.
That's all right. And Jeff focuses on his neighbors because he's not comfortable with Grace Kelly. That's what I was about to get into. And then that's what it's showing us here.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I think is really interesting about this movie is you could certainly look at it from Jeff's perspective, is that, there he is. There's the cameo.
Yeah. Dealing with the clock because he's literally saying, he's
like,
counting
get on
down.
with it.
Yeah.
But, to a certain degree, each one of the characters Jeffries is watching, you can envision him imagining that's a potential path for his life to go down. Right? Because you have the newlyweds that start off really happy, and then how they end I'll get into later. And then the Thornburgs and Miss Lonely Heart, and these are all choose-your-own-adventure options for him, where he can envision a future, and none of which he's finding very satisfying.
Right. Yeah. We watch his dramas like he watches his neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
He uses their lives to talk about his own life. I've caught that multiple times. And then the dark humor that they have in the film.
Mm-hmm. And his dissatisfaction with the perfect meal with lobster.
Right. I mean, who's going to complain about lobster? Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stewart. You know, that notorious crank.
Georgine Darcy plays the ballet dancer.
Miss Torso.
Yes.
You have to refer to her with the appropriate name. I mean, that is how she's credited.
Yeah.
But yes. Okay.
And guess
Did she ever do anything else?
She did. And there's a wonderful interview with her on the special editions of the Kino release. Okay. Guess who did the Grace Kelly's dress?
Oh, gosh. I know I'm going to know when you say it, but I don't know.
Edna Mode.
Okay.
Edith Head.
Edith Head, yes. That's what I was... That's the vision in my head, but I did not have the name coming to my brain.
Did you know that when you watched The Incredibles? I mean, did you see like Edith Head and that? Yeah, that was kind of obvious to film fans who were like, "Oh, that is Edith Head."
Yeah, it was like perfect.
Yeah, and I told that to everybody, and they're like, "Who?" Like, that's crime. That's a crime. Everybody should know Edith Head.
It's a pretty specific reference that you should know, but if you don't, you don't. But now you do.
But now you do,
and now your life is better, maybe. And here's their fight where Jeffries is acting kind of a jerkweed. But I get it.
Well, I mean, men are known for pulling shit like this. And Hitchcock is he's kind of stereotyping them only to break the stereotype at the end of the film. Where they all get out of their shells.
And it's definitely one of those things where many audiences members could look at this and say, okay, yeah, my husband does that. Or, gosh, I don't do that. And their wife says, oh, you kind of do that.
Yeah, she gets involved with the case as a way to bond with Jeff.
Well, do you think that's why? Or do you think that that's just her personality? Because I got it more from the latter. I don't think she was trying to bond with him per se. I think that was just her choice. But I could be wrong.
Well, I think it's definitely her choice. But it's amazing how she just drops it and just gets right in with both feet.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that I do think they do a really good job, or Hitchcock does a very good job, of establishing early on is she is not just an ornament.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, 'cause, like I said, she's obviously good at her job, right? Which is a critical component. She's competent.
You know, a lot of people have made this criticism of Hitchcock films over and over again about Hitchcock blondes being ornaments. And yet every time I watch a Hitchcock blonde, I get the absolute opposite effect.
Yeah, I think that's a false narrative.
Yeah. And you said, what's the lady's name? Juliana Crane that's in Psycho? I mean, Janet Leigh punches through that film with an energy, which is, you know, it's one of the lamentable things is that she's gone. Spoilers, gone after the first 20 minutes.
You're spoiling a 7-year-old
But she had such a screen presence, you actually missed her.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, she made an impact, and again, she was a character that was. I mean, the decisions she was making were the decisions that she wanted to make. She wasn't put in an unfortunate situation. I mean, it was obviously an unfortunate situation from the character perspective, but she was going away with the money.
And I know that nobody wants to hear this, but that photo on the wall is actually a fake. Unless Jimmy Stewart, if people don't know, Jimmy Stewart was a pilot. He flew missions during the Second World War in Korea and the Vietnam War. He retired as a brigadier general. But that photo was a fake photo. That's actually a what they call a destroyer, a Luftwaffe destroyer in the background. I think it's a Focke-Wulf. And it's him and standing with somebody else. And it looks like they cut those two characters out and stood them up. Of course, I don't know because Stewart actually fought in the war. He could have stood in front of, a captured plane like that and had his picture taken and had it put it up. But if
that's not what you would expect.
The implication of that he flew in the war in one of those things.
No, but it does establish what the point of the picture is.
It was just something that means nothing that I picked up in the background. All the lights for this set had let me rephrase that. The lights on this set, there were 4 times as many lights on this set because they set them for 4 different times of day.
Mm-hmm.
And every time they switched from one to the other, they would just turn off one set and turn on the other set.
But it's a very effective illusion.
It cost 4 times as much, but they shot like twice as fast because of that. You didn't have to wait for the setup. They already had everything ready to go.
They spent money to save money?
Yes.
I never do that in the DVD business.
Oh my God. My DVD collection. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we won't. Not right now.
Oh my God.
But,
okay. Bottle movies. Rope. We talked about Rope being a bottle movie. Lifeboat. Dial M for Murder. For most of that film, it takes place in and around the apartment.
Set.
Yeah. Rear Window.
Reservoir Dogs. Oh, we're talking about just straight Hitchcock flicks, though.
Yeah. But the end all be all bottle episode, when I think about a bottle episode, particularly on TV, there's one episode in Community in the 4th season where they literally do not leave the room.
I've not seen it.
So you need to watch the entire run of Community. It's
I've never watched episode 1. I don't doubt it, but I just haven't seen it.
All the outtakes for this film, supposedly, rumored to be, allegedly fit on one reel. That's how much rehearsal time they had on this.
That seems an exaggeration, but illustrating a plausible point.
10 minutes of outtakes.
That seems impossible, but
footnoted in this book. 389 release prints were made of this film. Which means,
was that standard for the time? Because I mean, a lot of times you had roadshows, a very different releasing format until Jaws, essentially, right?
Right.
So, is that a high number?
I don't know. That seems really, really a small amount to me.
Well, because we're used to 2,000, 4,000 theater releases now, right? But I don't know for the time how that compares.
Well, I couldn't tell you. I do remember reading on Trivial Pursuit one time. They said, what at 25,300, what country has the most amount of movie theaters? And the answer was the Soviet Union.
That makes sense,
right? Because that makes complete sense. But I don't know, 25,700 movie theaters. If you want to release a movie and if you want to see Solaris and all those,
but that's not happening, right?
It can't happen.
Well, and it was just a different release schedule. I mean, these things would be. There wasn't quote wide release like we think of it now.
Yeah, and you also had you went through masters and grandparents and parents and all of that.
And is that 389? I guess first prints, right?
Right.
So.
Right.
No dupes.
And he had he put lacquer on the film negative and stripped it off to take off the color yellow.
That's fascinating.
In order to give it a tone that he wanted. This was back when you could do shit like that to film. I am so paranoid about touching film. I wouldn't ever touch film.
Personally.
I worked with it when I was a photographer. That was bad enough because I have lost an innumerable amount of memories that I took on print film that I can never get back. Stuff that I remember and I wish I had photos of. I'm paranoid of if you shot 10 minutes of footage and you did anything wrong with it and it's gone. That just terrifies the hell out of me.
Yeah, I'm like a lot of folk. I suppose I prefer the look of film, but I totally get why when digital showed up, a lot of
everybody jumped on it,
and not just for the cost, but for the ease. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, now I can do what I want to do,
right, and not just George Lucas,
right.
But he apparently did that because the choice was color or sharpness, and apparently you can't have it both in Technicolor. You can have color in Technicolor, or you can have sharpness.
Yeah, that checks. Okay.
And this has been restored. So you go through that, should we change something? Can we change something? What do you see? Yeah.
No. So, what were you saying?
Oh, restoration ethics. Should we change something if you're restoring it? Can we change something if you're restoring it? Do we have the right to change anything when you're restoring it? Especially when the director's dead.
Well, define change. Right? Are we talking about something that's fundamental to the story?
Well, particularly in
color
color
talking about
correct. I mean, how do you color correct this if you haven't seen it for the first time at a theater?
Right. And then again, I saw a lot of movies on the first run that are, unfortunately, to my mortality, old movies, and I can't tell you if the Blu-ray is accurate.
Right.
I see those discussions online. I was like, oh, I saw Top Gun when it came out. I was like, and you remember what it looks like from a color perspective. You do not. You remember the cable reshows. You remember your VHS and all these different iterations, right? Unless it was incredibly specific. And even then, you're not going to remember the details.
There's an amazing interview with Gordon Willis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cinematographer. He's
For
talking
Godfather?
about, yeah. Well, he was talking about the parallax view.
Okay.
And remastering it 40 years after he shot it.
Right.
And he didn't go specifically into that, but if there's anybody who knows what he shot, it's Gordon Willis.
Yeah, you would think. But, I mean, if it's one of those things where as long as there's not significant content changes, generally speaking, while I may not like the appearance of, say, a new color, I am not going to freak out.
Yeah. And I love his masseuse and her sense of humor.
And she's the only practical one of the bunch.
Right. It does show, Hitchcock was known for having like a wicked sense of humor.
Oh, yes.
And you don't see it so much in Psycho, but you see it in...
Well, Psycho is such an outlier in his filmography.
It is.
Right? I mean, because I think a lot of people who don't watch much of his stuff think of him as a horror filmmaker. And he kind of wasn't. He made, what, 2? The Birds and Psycho that could be qualified as modern horror? I mean, the rest of them, at the time may have been considered somewhat horrifying, but I don't think that was what any reasonable person would consider a genre now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I looked at him primarily when I was a kid. I looked at him as a horror director, and he's not.
Mm-mm. Thriller for sure, of course, but not horror. And of course, he was nuanced. I mean, a lot of his stuff isn't even. No, they're all thrillers. Yeah. I'm having a hard time thinking of one that isn't, frankly. But
Peter Bogdanovich wrote a book on Hitchcock. He knew Hitchcock, interviewed him for his book. He's got this great story. You
haven't read Hitchcock Truffaut, have you?
I have not.
I haven't either, so I was just curious.
I've seen a documentary on that interview process. Anyway, so he and Hitchcock got on an elevator, and Bogdanovich said they're just having like a pleasant conversation on their way to lunch or something, and they go to one floor, and people get on, and people get off, and they go on the second floor, and it's the same thing, several floors. And this couple got on and turned around, and they didn't give him a look. They didn't give Hitchcock a look like most people would, like, oh, you're Alfred Hitchcock. And of course, nobody would fucking know who Peter Bogdanovich is in 1966.
No, I wouldn't think so.
But
why does he have an ascot? He's so young.
It's a bandana.
All right.
But anyway, so Hitch just started talking like it was quite horrible. There was blood everywhere. They didn't know what to do with the blood or how to clean it up or how did you get it out of the carpet. And so they had to roll up the carpet and take the carpet. And he just went on and on and on and on about this blood cleanup. And Peter Bogdanovich was sitting there looking at him like, what are you talking about? He didn't say anything, but he was like giving him this look like this is out of nowhere. And then the people who got off the elevator, Bogdanovich, one of them said that one of them turned and looked over his shoulder and Hitch like, what the? It was acting, and then it hit him like, oh, that's what he was doing.
Yes.
I just thought it was so horrible. There was blood everywhere, and the cops didn't know how to get it out of the carpet.
I can imagine that. Major points there.
Okay, so the minute she's gone, he just turns the chair around and
back to peeping.
Peeping,
Jeffy.
Raymond Burr and taking the jewels. Now, I do have to say that...
Well, he's not taking the jewels, right?
Explain, please.
Oh, okay, maybe
you've got it. You've got it right.
Well,
You're on the right track.
He's a salesman.
Yes,
and the impression I always got was that's his wares.
Yes.
Okay.
And this.
So I miss. Okay, continue.
This goes into one of the things that I was unsure about when I was watching this for the first time was whether or not this was true or whether or not Raymond Burr was a killer.
Right.
And it really wasn't until the very end, not even when the flashbulb goes off, but it's when he's pushing him out the window. It was like, oh, that guy's guilty of murder.
Oh yeah, he did bad things.
Right.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I jumped all over that though.
Yeah, that's all right. But it is, I mean, Hitch to the very last second just kind of keeps enough information from you so that you second guess all the way, because you don't actually see any verifiable evidence of anything.
And until that point, there's really no violence to speak of. I mean, there's a lot of allusions to, cleaning up the blood, but you certainly don't see it.
And here he is with his
the big ass telephoto.
Yes, it was just stand in for his penis.
Okay.
Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. And
I suppose so.
And sometimes, well, I mean, he's very emasculated. He can't move. He can't go anywhere. Can't make love to his girlfriend. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I were with Grace Kelly, I'd be tearing the cast off my body.
I'd be using the scratcher some, yes. I don't disagree with that.
Rear Window represents an unambiguous, sometimes even vicious broadside onto the male psyche and male insecurity. At the same time, it represents a kind of ode to feminine wisdom and style, an appreciation of women that avoids the condescension or paternalism that Hitchcock often displayed in his interviews. When he's referring to actors as cattle and all of that.
Right. So who is that quote attributed to?
Is that
in your book?
It is. John Farrell.
Okay, so that's the author, not a crew.
And this is a very informed book, and he brings up several points of view. He doesn't really take a side.
That sounded like he was taking a side.
Well, certainly there he was.
Okay.
Yeah. So I love this guy,
the composer.
The composer who's cleaning his carpet. So there's 6 giant pans. I think this is the third one.
Mm-hmm.
And
the choreography is remarkable.
Oh my God! You're waiting for. Here's the little dog. Foreshadow. Quite ingenious.
Oh yes.
This is also one of those things of. I am so glad that I don't live in New York City.
Oh sure.
In the 400 square foot apartment,
and I'm sure it's a delightful place to do it, but I'm not interested myself.
Yeah, my. You're aware that my son just came back from living in Berlin for 6 months, and it was very much the same. His apartment in Berlin was about as big as my study here.
Yeah, I believe that.
It was incredibly small.
Yeah.
But it was fantastic to visit.
Oh, for sure. And he probably loved it because he didn't have to, he wasn't living there the rest of his life. He knew when the end was.
Yeah. Remember, Scotty really didn't live here. He's in Africa. He's in Australia. Mm-hmm. He's in a war zone somewhere. He probably 1954, he just got back from Korea. And he's on his way to Algeria.
He's a rambling, traveling man.
Limiting the set makes you think outside the box and be more creative, is a note that I took.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Yeah, the limitations you place on... The limitations Hitchcock placed on himself allowed him to really explore the best way to overcome those limitations.
So this is one of the things that I really admire about Hitchcock and his films is how he very specifically limits himself almost to challenge himself.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about some of his contemporaries, someone who was about 20 years younger than him was Orson Welles.
Okay.
Orson never had Hitchcock's budget after his first film.
Right.
And I remember an interview with Orson where someone asked him, do you think that you're more creative because you've never had the tools that, say, someone like Alfred Hitchcock had? And he thought that was a funny question. He said, his response was, let me rephrase that question. You're asking me if my poverty has helped my creativity.
Well, necessity in the mother of all, mother of invention.
Exactly. Yeah. So I feel like Hitch was huge on, people think of Vertigo being travelogue photography and everything,
mm-hmm.
and the birds too. But Hitch really reveled in working in the studio. He did not particularly like to leave the studio.
Well, he liked the control.
Right. Well, he was very much in. Look at this dress, my God.
Yeah. And Grace apparently hated smoking, and that's the only time, at least in this movie, where she even pretended to do it.
That was probably 3 minutes after Prince Rainier grabbed the cigarette out of her hand and crushed it, and
no, I think it existed before.
Told her in a heavy French accent, "You will never smoke again." That's not a French accent. It's kinds of German.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I was not sure what it was, but
there's across the Rhine that accent. Okay, there's 31 apartments on this set. There's 12 of them that are completely furnished.
All the way through.
That's right. And then I have a note here that says, read page 18.
Hold, please.
I'll fix that in post.
Okay, fair enough. Should I?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Hitchcock was strongly influenced by the time he spent in Germany as a young director and his visits to F.W. Murnau's sets. He was impressed with Murnau's experiments in distorted sets and perspective. Hitchcock described himself as an abstract expressionist, citing Klee as his favorite painter, and waged a perpetual war against, quote, dullards, who were unduly concerned with plausibility, which he told Truffaut was the easiest part, so why bother? Like an expressionist painting, the set is implausible in terms of distance and proportion, but leaps out at the viewer with its vivid color and large, bold design.
That seems pretty fair characterization.
I thought so. And everything has depth. But it's not in focus. Of course, you can't have technicolor in focus is almost impossible.
No, but there's detail put into it, and it looks lived in. I mean, it looks like an artificial lived in, but it does look lived in because you have clutter. You have too much stuff.
Hitchcock regretted Americans' demand for a realistic art. He argued to Bogdanovich that in his mid-30s the audience would accept more. The films of the period were full of fantasy, and one didn't have to worry about logic or truth. When I came to America, the first thing I had to learn was that the audiences were more questioning. I'll put it another way. Less avant-garde.
Ooh, using the French words. But I tend to agree. I myself, here we go. So this is the remarkable part where
he grabs the binoculars.
And all of a sudden, the paradigm is kind of shifted, and the characters are really not looking at the potential murder as a potential murder, but almost a guarantee.
Now there's a body, and Grace Kelly starts to turn, which is why you have that push-in.
Mm-hmm.
Like it suddenly occurs, and you get that in a lot of movies. I don't know what the first push-in was when the light bulb goes off in somebody's head, the camera pushes in. But that was brilliantly done.
Yes.
Now here is the expressionism that I was talking about, the lighter in the background. Where Raymond Burr sparks a stogie. And as Hitchcock's career goes on, you can see sort of less and less of that German influence, specifically like the expressionism from the 1920s is what I'm thinking of the Murnau years. Which I'm just guessing is harder to do in Technicolor.
That's probably accurate. Or just he found it less interesting, or both.
It's kind of sinister, him sitting in the dark and smoking like that.
But it makes a lot of sense. Sorry, we were interrupted by dogs, so we're just kind of to get ourselves back on track.
We cut out and we cut back in. Now he's having his sandwich of the day. I wish I could survive on a grilled cheese sandwich and tea. Of course, he's probably watching his weight, being that he's immobile.
Or he just really likes the grilled cheese sandwiches and tea, because, I mean, that sounds pretty good right now. And eggs.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not grilled cheese, it's toast. Oops. But everybody's getting invested in the story now.
Here's that sombrero on the right-hand side hanging on the wall. What is that?
It looks like more like an African shield, but reserve the right to be wrong.
Oh, okay. No, I think that is what it is. It's like made out of wood or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those things where Hitchcock believed the background had to be involved in the story. We were discussing that. There's this picture of him in the plains.
But now we have the most compelling television show to the entire neighborhood.
Oh, Miss Torso.
Yeah, Miss Torso, of course.
Hanging out her brassiere.
Which must have been very scandalous at the time.
And then the couple next door that are like constantly fucking.
Yeah, and this is the interesting part is...
Come back to bed.
Yeah, it's like, is he annoyed or is he exhausted?
Or both.
Yeah, exactly. And here's Thorberg getting 3 men movers to potentially get rid of a body.
And can we talk about Raymond Burr for a minute?
I don't see why we can't.
And I watched Perry Mason reruns when I was a kid, I think on Nick at Night.
Mm-hmm.
Delivery men with their caps, like, because everybody wore hats back then. And he actually was not that old back then. This was right before his TV show, and which went on forever.
Oh yeah, that was
Perry Mason. And I saw reruns of Perry Mason, twice a day for months and months and months.
At TNT?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it was TNT.
I think it probably was. I was trying to remember. Watched a lot of TNT growing up.
Yeah, that and Nick at Night.
Mm-hmm.
Donna Reed Show. Leave It to Beaver. My Three Sons. Courtship of Eddie's Father. The Honeymooners. Who can forget the Honeymooners? But Raymond Burr was an enormous presence on TV in the 50s. And here he looks like he's in his 60s. And he wasn't in his 60s until much later, until the 1980s.
Well, remember, this is the 1950s and 60s where everybody who was 40 looked 60.
It's really... I was reading a book, not to get too off topic, but to keep that in mind, like I was reading a book about President Roosevelt, and his blood pressure was way out of control, and it was in the spring of 1945, and they knew that he was going to die because of blood pressure. But then it just happens to mention, and nobody knew how to control blood pressure, and they wouldn't for another 35 years. And I was like, oh my God, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on blood pressure medication for 22 years.
Really?
Yeah. And so I'd hate to think about what state my heart would be in at the age of 50 without blood pressure medication.
It could be below average.
And that has nothing to do with Rear Window other than me looking back at the past. Here's his cop friend. And he looks just like he walked off the set at Dragnet or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like he knows Joe Friday.
Yeah, plainclothesmen back then were pretty nattily dressed.
And they were all veterans.
That's right.
Like this guy. Like this, everybody's a veteran. Everybody fought in the war. Or they shuffled paper or did something. Flew an airplane like Jimmy Stewart. Alfred Hitchcock was in the Signal Corps in the British Army.
Did not know that, but it makes sense.
Yeah, some of the stuff that actually the British Army shot in terms of film at the liberation of the Bergen-Belsen camp,
mm-hmm.
he hand cranked that stuff. So Hitchcock actually knew how to operate a camera, which surprises nobody. I'm sure the people who know Hitchcock know that.
Oh, sure.
We're not, treading over.
You're not breaking new ground there, but it is notable. Less specialization, and to a certain degree, that applied to all of society, right? A lot of people had done a lot of different things.
Well, in a Hollywood studio system where they're getting people to focus on one particular talent, there wasn't a whole lot of cross-discipline effort. So when you ran into a director who knew how to do a whole bunch of things, those people had died out by this time. Those were people like Alan Dwan, for instance, who got into it because he was basically what was an electrical engineer in the 1890s. And you needed lights on set. And that's how he got into directing, was he was doing the lighting for somebody else. And he got into editing, cutting, and then he was writing stuff because they didn't want to hire a screenwriter. And then things just got so Hitchcock comes along the time when UFO was just getting off of its training wheels, and he was learning how to do very specific tasks one at a time. The editing and so forth. Screenwriting, And that was actually quite rare. The studio system by the 1930s, like you worked in silos, and you didn't really cross all that much. So you have someone like Stanley Kubrick who got his start effectively as a cinematographer, and he knew what to do with the camera. And by the time, he basically was doing his own cinematography on his first 3 movies, and then he was operating the camera himself for certain sections of Eyes Wide Shut. And that's as like how old was he when he was doing that? 79. He was operating the camera. Where Steven Soderbergh shoots a lot of his own films.
Yeah, Soderbergh pretty much, he does everything in some regards.
Listening to Soderbergh describe the problems with working on a digital camera on Che was pretty spectacular. Very detail oriented. Yeah, his detective's not buying it. This is got to be like the nicest cop suit I have ever seen.
Oh, yes, it is well pressed. And this is actually one of the least compelling parts of the movie for me, is his cop buddy's involvement.
Well, he's got this is, for lack of a better word, this is the one scene in the movie that's necessary.
Yeah, it is kind of to support what you were referencing earlier, Hitchcock not particularly caring for, right? It's like, oh, well, wouldn't you call the cops? It's like, okay, well, we'll make it so he has a cop who's a friend from the war who takes him seriously, but...
It wouldn't make sense if he didn't call the cops, but it's not something that Hitch is particularly interested in.
Doesn't appear to be.
He tries to make the dialogue as interesting as he can.
Mm-hmm. And it is a nice suit.
Yeah. And I think this is also the only scene where, Jimmy Stewart is very good in this film about not going into the wall that he's really known for. But this is the one scene where that comes out. I think it's because of the weakness of the scene.
Yes, this has a lot more aw shucksness with it.
Yeah. But I don't know if you've seen his films with Anthony Mann.
No, I have not. No, not seen those Westerns.
I think I've seen, and he did 2 modern ones. One where he was a bomber pilot, which was fitting for Jimmy Stewart. But I think I saw they had a whole thing on Criterion. They had like 7 of them. I didn't know who Anthony Mann was.
Yeah, I know the name, but I don't know his stuff. I haven't seen it. Did he do Winchester 73?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they did one, not North to Alaska. That's like a early James Caan film with somebody else. But there was an Alaskan one where basically he was up on the Klondike and he was playing like a real dick. And I was like, Jimmy Stewart as a dick. Like that's a ballsy move.
Yeah, but it's not all that inconsistent, right? We like to think of him as kind of the aw shucks, kind of guy. But there are a lot of his famous roles where, yeah, he's kind of portraying something of a kind of pain in the ass.
Yeah, like Henry Fonda not like the straight villain in Once Upon a Time in the West, but really someone that you just, and Stewart was playing against type on that, which is the key. But if you ever get a chance, I watched about 4 of those Westerns and 2 of those modern ones, and I was really captivated by what was going on.
No, like I said, I know of them. I just have not seen them. But if you take a look at his character in, It's a Wonderful Life, I mean, he can be kind of a...
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, my God. That's not the way you think of it until you see it, and you're like going, wow, this is going pretty dark.
Yeah, he was so worn down. He was so tired by the end of that film. Everything that had happened to him and all the adversity. It was kind of like the Life of Job type of situation. Stalin's favorite book.
What's that?
The Life of Job.
Oh, okay.
That's just a footnote off a footnote. That means nothing.
And the itch he can't quite get. He kind of gets to it. But I remember this. My brother and our cousin, they were in a body cast. Not the same body cast, because that'd be weird, but they both had their femurs broken at the same time.
Oh, my God.
So they were in a body cast from basically the waist down to the feet for, it's probably not as long as I think it was, but a long time, probably 3 months for both of them. It was just one of those terrible things where my brother broke his leg skiing and my cousin broke his femur by getting hit by a car, but within months of each other.
Jeez.
But yeah, you could tell that being that locked down. And they're both pretty young because they're almost the exact same age. But, yeah, that itchiness and being able to get to that stuff, it was infuriating to them.
Oh, I bet it was. And this is just at a time where, again, you don't have modern medicine. Like, you remember Mank, and where Gary Oldman was in. I mean, it's like a half body cast, and Herman Mankiewicz really wore that. And can you imagine just having to go to the bathroom and doing all that shit?
Oh no, there are bedpans and things that get used, and that's just
and you got to pay a nurse.
In modern medicine, with a broken femur, you're still kind of stuck.
Yeah, this catheter time. This is a beautiful dress.
Yeah, it's really good use of the Technicolor, liquid courage.
Yeah.
Miss Lonely Hearts is going out to get herself a man.
The first time I watched this, I thought, oh, well, he's trying to hint that she's an alcoholic. But no, I think it's more along the lines of, I'm going on my date.
Mm-hmm.
I need to, like you were saying, liquid courage. I need to booze up just a little bit so I can brave this fight. It's just like any sailor taking some vodka.
Yeah. Before
he goes into battle. Look at these dresses here. This party the composer's having.
Yeah, that's the nice thing that this sounds really stupid, but I like about old movies is, damn, we dressed better then.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I mean, casual attire was pretty uncommon, at least being portrayed.
I'm sure everybody wanted to wear something that was designed by Edith Head. I mean, you look at that collar, and that is an Edith Head collar. An American in Paris, or what's the? Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, the Gene
Kelly and Audrey Hepburn.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this scene, using the telephoto lens on the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Truffaut said that Hitch had a habit of shooting love scenes like murder scenes, and murder scenes like love scenes. And I look at sort of hinting with Jeff here with the camera going up in his lap, down in his lap, just constantly holding and fondling the camera. It's almost like a masturbatory reference. And here he is taking out the laundry. With the handkerchiefs and the new shirts, going on a trip with a straw hat.
Because Thorberg is certainly someone who looks like he could totally use a good time.
I wanted to go through the sound in this film is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I just said film is so important as a silent film. You could watch it as a silent film, and that's true. But Hitch did not ignore sound. He often depended on what Weiss refers to as aural intrusions, sounds from off-screen to convey his moments of deeper terror. So the murder in Rear Window takes place off-screen somewhere, communicated only by a scream that is swallowed quickly in silence. The woman's discovery of her dog's body comes to us as an off-screen scream. Thorwald's arrival in Jeff's apartment comes in oral increments. The click on the phone as the receiver is hung up. The jarring slam of the elevator doors as the elevator begins its ascent. The exaggerated sound of the footsteps in the hallway. The click of the hall light going off. The amplified sound of the door opening. Even in moments of lighter shock, for example, those scenes where Stella discovers Jeff and us peeping, Hitchcock has her voice precede her image. Hitchcock seemed aware, as Bresson noted, that sounds penetrate more deeply and consequently were a more efficient means of conveying terror. I don't know about that, but I do know that when he's got like we were just talking about the scratching thing, and this is what made me think about, we ought to mention sound, is when Jeff is scratching himself and he's getting that itch, you can hear the singer hit a high note while he's doing that. So it's almost like mimicking an orgasm. Hitch and his wonderful sense of humor.
And his kind of twisted sensibilities.
Yeah. Thorwald's ended in murder. The old couple is a sterile couple since they sleep in the fireplace where it's cooler. Jeff and Lisa are on the rocks. Fire escape. Sorry. Jeff hiding in his job is a sign of weakness. There's all these sort of weak relationships.
Well, they've all got their challenges.
But again, at the end of the movie, you find out that couple is actually pretty close. And, And then Stewart and Kelly get back together, and Miss Lonely Hearts winds up being okay, and Miss Torso's boyfriend comes home from his service, and so it's not just one happy ending; it's like 7 happy endings. There's only one of these that didn't pan out.
Correct.
So Hitchcock is seemingly always ending on hope in this film, despite that one situation. So it's not a totally pessimistic film, despite its heavy critique of masculinity and how we criticize femininity. And Hitchcock does remind me of what De Palma said in that documentary that's on Netflix. But this was every male thinks this way. I think De Palma just said it, and people didn't like it, which is just an unfortunate truth that a lot of people are uncomfortable with. When De Palma says, I like the female form,
right, and
I like watching the female form move. I like watching women walk and women speak and say things. And it sounded bad, but at the same time, it was like, well,
it's not inaccurate.
That's not nearly as bad as what some people do on Reddit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And it's
right.
Yeah. I mean, I thought we were supposed to speak our truths now. I can't remember anymore. I can't keep track of it all. No, it's not something you want to say in polite society. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe not polite society, but approved society.
Well, which film?
Also, De Palma's kind of a perv.
He is, but I thought that was a very gentle way of him stating the obvious.
And embracing. He knows what he likes, and that's what he likes.
Yeah, and we're not criticizing women for holding that same objective view of men.
No, it gets.
I too hope to be objectified someday.
No, one day you could be a piece of meat.
Jeff sees Lisa as superficial and materialistic, but she is the one who cracks the case because she notices Thorwald's jewelry.
Mm-hmm. Yes, she's much more of an effective change maker in the entire movie. She is one of the more powerful driving components. I mean, she influences Jeff. She influences the outcome of the story. I mean, she's really engaged. I mean, the criticism that you had referenced earlier that the author had quoted, where, Hitch's female leads were oftentimes not that involved. I agreed with your perception that you were saying. It's like, it doesn't seem like that to me. They're usually much more engaged than we'd like to give them credit for. They're all consistent in their look, right? And I think to a certain degree, that's the cause of a lot of that observation. It's like, well, it's the same blonde woman. It's like, well, it's kind of not.
They're all different.
They're all different. I mean, yes, they're all blonde. Okay, that is true.
Well, when I hear that criticism and I think of Marnie, and I haven't seen Marnie in 35 years. It's hard, but Tippi Hedren stars in that, if I remember correctly. That is a very deep, nuanced performance reflecting a very varied character. And I don't know how somebody can see that performance and make a judgment about that way. It just seems like something that's so completely off.
Right, but there's an element of truth to it, and I'm sure people would argue, right? But at the same time, it seems very shallow.
Well, and I think De Palma, if anything, is more guilty of that than, say, Hitchcock, just because his women that you watch on his films are not really necessarily on screen all that much, communicating in and out of the plot. I mean, you have Melanie Griffith and in Body Double, for example, or Nancy Alley in Dress to Kill, or even, but Angie Dickinson is kind of two-dimensional when she pops up, other than her fear of being stalked and all the things that might be happening. That's certainly true, but I just think of particularly his victims. Hitchcock's women, his blondes are more sophisticated than De Palma's victims, because you just don't see a whole lot of interaction. That's just me talking off the top of my head.
It could be. I mean, it's not one of those things I put a lot of thought into. This is an iconic shot. I'm sorry. This.
Oh yeah, her
laying
lounging
down in the green,
both ways. Yeah,
very cat-like.
And every time wow,
and then takes her shirt off.
Wow.
Well, not her shirt. I'm sorry, her jacket.
Yeah,
Freudian.
Yeah.
And, to a certain degree, I almost feel like apologizing for that type of comment from my side, but at the same time, Lisa is definitely smart enough and savvy enough to know, okay, I have these gifts and tools, and I know how to best exploit.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No. It's one of those things where, in modern day parlance, she's recognizing her power, I guess. But it's an old thing, and that's fine.
Well, she's a model, right? That's her job, is to wear those things for.
She models, but she's involved in that in the magazine.
Right.
And it's unclear, at least in my recollection, precisely what her job is, but I don't believe it's strictly as just a clothes source.
She could just be one of these people like Lee Miller, where Lee Miller was a model and she was a photographer and she wrote articles and she directed sets. And
sorry, focusing on the film too much.
Focusing on that sharp ass suit right off the set of Dragnet, or Kevin Spacey from L.A. Confidential. I know we're not supposed to say Kevin Spacey anymore. We're supposed to just ignore him and act like he never existed.
And here begins the famous swirling of the cognac that seems to be really aggressive for a really long time.
Does it?
Yeah, just pay attention. It's like there's this nonstop swirling of the drinks where it's like...
Oh, he's looking at her underwear. Oh, and then Stewart's doing it too.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there's a lot of eye contact here.
There is. He's
because the detective is putting two and two together. It's like, oh, they're fucking.
It's like, I know, it's a shock. Like, I wouldn't think that people would do this in this day and age.
This is Eisenhower's America. People don't do this, okay?
There she goes. I mean,
yeah,
ripping it.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
It was almost like the direction was like, I just do something, and we're all going to just do this now.
Yeah, they're still doing it.
Well, they do it for quite a while.
I've never noticed this before. They're warming it with their hand. That's how you drink brandy.
Those things are, gosh, they're boiling by this point.
And so I don't know if this is related at all. I've watched this movie. I don't know, it's the fourth or fifth time I've seen this now within the span of a year. Mm-hmm. And she's wearing pearls, of course, and she's got pearls around her wrist. So we all know what pearls are as a metaphorical sense in a film. And I keep waiting for something to happen to pearls, and I don't. It's just probably decorative. But this guy and his brandy.
Yep. But now
she stops swirling it.
Yep.
Because he's finally like, okay.
There's a possibility, there's a non-zero chance that, yeah.
Yeah, this is when Stewart's like, yeah, what about this? What about the knife? What about the saw?
It's like, yeah, do you ever own a saw? How many people did you cut up?
Yeah. Not unreasonable.
And it's actually what you want the police, the perspective for them to have in situations like this, a certain degree of skepticism and pre-lawyering.
Well, this kind of reminds me of Vertigo when you see Kim Novak on the street halfway through the film, and she's got brown hair. I didn't know why we were even following her. I didn't know that was Kim Novak.
Right. Could you look dramatically different?
She looked way different. And the story went on for like 10 or 15 minutes. And then Stewart's like, can you dress like this and do your hair this way? And I was like, what's going on?
Right. What is this weirdo doing?
Right. I was so lost. And then she changed
and
her hair. And it was like, oh, shit. No, that is Kim. That's Kim Note. Like, how
did you not see it?
I was fooled for 10 or 15 minutes. But of course, Technicolor, like I said, you can have it colorful or you can have it sharp. And
but never the twain shall meet.
Right. And he's choosing color. And I don't think that he wants you to notice the finer things unless he specifically points them out to you. Like, who gives a shit about the books on his shelf?
Yeah, that's not critical what they are.
Right.
Just critical that they exist. You tell your landlord everything.
Right.
And they're still swirling the drinks.
I can't believe this is still going on.
It goes on for, like I said, it goes on for quite a while.
It was like when we were watching M and like the smoke like never stopped. It was like 5 straight
it's like, wait a
scenes
second,
of
hey.
people just smoking.
It's like, is this L.A. in 2025? I don't understand.
It is one thing that I thought about.
That was a terrible thing.
When I was talking to Luke, he was in Berlin for the first week or something, and I was like, "So how's it over there?" And he's like, "Dude, people smoke over here like crazy."
It is.
I was like,
Europe.
"Oh my god!"
They didn't know how to live it up.
And I thought about M, like, yeah, they smoke. I remember that scenes in M. There's a nice elephant there on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
I have a note here that says, read from page 54 when Jeff is on the phone with Lisa. That was a while ago.
That was pre-swirling. But
That was this bit of dialogue is reminiscent of another later on when Jeff has sent Lisa out on a mission to the foyer of the Thorwald apartment, which is coming up here in about 10 minutes, if I remember correctly.
I believe that's right.
Building to gather information on Thorwald. What's Thorwald, doing now? Asked Lisa, calling from a nearby public phone. He's just sitting there in the dark, hasn't gone near the bedroom, says Jeff, unaware that the description fits him perfectly, especially after Lisa asks her what her next mission is, and Jeff only sends her home. Again and again, Lisa and Stella suggest that Jeff is abnormal, that he has a problem, that something he can't discuss, something he is hiding from, and something too frightful to utter. A variety of interpretations of Jeff's malady has occurred to critics. As mentioned above, Samuels reads the film as a case study in repressed homosexuality. Stan and Pearson typify the critical response in regard to Jeff when they write, voyeurism, passivity, and implied impotence are shown to form a melancholy constellation of mutually reinforcing neurosis. It is very plausible to work theories of repressed homosexuality and impotence from Hitchcock's and Hayer's clever script, and the two certainly have a good time with these inferences, which are not unrelated to Jeff's sexual makeup, but is probably safer not to fix Jeff's problems so precisely. Jeff's problems can be seen in a larger context. He is a fantasist. He prefers women across the way, women at a distance, through a lens, fantasy women to actual flesh and blood women, like Lisa. He enjoys gazing at women more than being with them, like a great many men and women, heterosexual or homosexual, and maybe like Hitchcock himself, who had perhaps the most intense relationships with women on movie sets. Jeff shows a marked preference over fantasy over reality, and this preference represents a punishment to the person who loves him the most.
And probably explains why he's a photographer.
Right.
He's viewing things through his perspective, which is what he wants them to be as opposed to what they are. Luckily, nobody we know does that.
I mean, isn't that just life?
Yeah, no, it's apparently repressed homosexuality. Shouldn't really think about that so much. It's like, oh, no, I just like things the way I want them to be as opposed to the way they are.
If you're a repressed homosexual, what the fuck are you doing with Grace Kelly? That's a rhetorical question.
It's more like, what aren't you doing?
What aren't you doing? Yeah. Exactly.
And we're going to get that.
So, I mean, those are your two choices in that paragraph. Is it homosexuality or is it impotence? I'm like, well, I mean, his dick's in a cast.
Yeah, it's
like
it's a little bit more obvious, but it's probably a little more accurate.
It's forced impotence. And here, she's needling him in the neck and he's patting her. I'll begin with Miss Torso.
But to a certain degree, I don't know if it even matters. Right, I don't really care.
No,
the story itself is driving, right, and what he's doing, even though we're not in body casts. We're not. Probably most people listening to this podcast aren't, but it's one of those where it's like, this is a compelling story. It's all bolted together quite well, and it just works, and not necessarily due to any deeper reading, although deeper reading certainly assists with the rewatchability, right? But just, again, going back to the original, just for popular entertainment. Sorry.
Well, I liked when she had the case open with her lingerie and she said, preview for coming attractions. And it was sort of, I was waiting. So the second time I watched this, I knew that line was coming up, and I almost expected her to emphasize it, like, preview of coming attractions.
But she just showed up in her nightgown, which is it's very flattering.
If you ever get a chance, you got to listen to the commentary on The Touch of Evil, the 1997 cut.
Okay.
It's got the archival historian who helped restore it to Orson's version, and Janet Leigh and Charlton Heston. They're all three of them live in the same room talking about it. And that scene where Janet Leigh pops up in her underwear reclining on the couch, and all three of them were like, wow. Like, even Janet Leigh was like, shit, I was hot back then. Damn. So this is the sad thing. Like, who's going to kill the dog? Of course, the killer's going to kill the dog. And this is kind of looking forward in terms of a lot of killers don't have empathy. A lot of serial killers, they find out, people like Jeffrey Dahmer, people like John Wayne Gacy, people like Edward Gein, before they killed human beings, they killed animals.
Right.
And they did not attach a lot to life. Of course, this is after the murder, not before.
And not because he likes killing, per se.
Right. He's just trying to
cover his ass.
Right.
But it's ironically much more impactful to the community than the disappearance of Mrs. Thorwald, right?
Yeah.
And that may be on purpose as well, right? Because that happened in private, and people don't know each other, but they know the little dog. You don't see a lot of interaction between the neighbors. The artist is about the only neighbor who really puts any effort into talking to other neighbors, and to a large degree, they look at her like she's kind of a weirdo.
Right.
Because she's an artist.
Yeah, she's speaking to them, and they're not speaking to her.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, Thorwald is the only one who doesn't get active. But
he's just hanging out in the dark, smoking his cigarettes.
I was actually thinking, one of the times I watched this, I was thinking about the Kitty Genovese story, which is the famous story about Kitty Genovese, who was murdered in New York City. It was, it was in the late 60s.
The one where everybody heard and nobody called the cops?
Right. Yeah, nobody called. It was like dozens and dozens of people didn't call the police while she was screaming for help and being stabbed.
The 60s? I thought that was like later, 70s, 80s, maybe?
Early. It could have been early 70s. I don't think it was any later than that, but it was definitely when crime in New York City was crazy. It was like 1,000 murders a year or something. And it was, people were writing case studies on it, like psychologists and police experts and criminal justice majors, about how this was indicative of our society. And they were quoting, the Milbrand study and the Stanford study and all these other, psychological plays about how people were becoming apathetic and they didn't care about other people's pain. And it wasn't full on Schadenfreude, but it was just a lack of empathy and going around in American society, and they tried to bring fucking Carter into it and say, well, this is indicative of America's malaise in the 70s and all this. And so then after all of that, like when, I don't know, I was in grad school or even later, I actually was reading this paper. Oh my God, this killed me. The situation was so absurd that I laughed out loud. Where this medical expert, who was a medical doctor, actually went through the case files, read everything the police wrote on it, and then read her autopsy report, and discovered that both of her lungs were punctured. Like, well, will you try screaming for help when your lungs are punctured?
Yeah, the volume is going to be reduced.
There's no way. There was with her wounds that she sustained. Nobody heard her. And then, of course, he went back to the press reports, and the press, the cops didn't have anything on their daily notes about, I heard this, and it was something that the press had made up and reported.
Right.
It was a complete 100% fabrication.
But, I mean, it's a fairly logical thing.
It was a very logical conclusion.
If you don't have all the facts.
Right, and people believed it, which was...
That sounds so weird. I'm glad things like that don't happen ever now.
It's fake news. Kita Genovese is fake news.
Well, and to a certain degree, that kind of was. Not her death, of course.
Right. Well, she was an unfortunate person. I mean, they caught her killer, and he went to jail. And it's this very sad story, and how we all got wrapped up in it. And that is a million miles away from the dog.
Well, it is. But the writing of the note.
Yeah, here we're scheming. We're directly getting involved in the situation now, and there's no turning back once he does this. What have you done
with her?
With her. Now, Jimmy, I want you to write really big letters, all capital letters.
Very blocky.
Very blocky.
Lars.
So that the camera can pick it up. And we're going to use a number 10 lead pencil. Look at this dress.
Yeah. We were spending a lot of time commenting on the wardrobe.
There's no way to get around what she's wearing in this film.
I don't disagree. It's actually...
It's more than Vertigo.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you have in your research how many Oscars this was nominated for and or won. But you would imagine in costuming would be... Well, it's one of those things. Is it one of those where it's like this was fairly standard for the day, or was this recognized as exceptional back then? I don't know. But gosh, it sure is exceptional.
This was a successful film when it came out. I can't remember what the gross was.
Oh, it was huge. It was like
enormous.
It was made for $1 million and gross like 37.
Huge.
Absolutely bananas money. The ROI was tremendous.
And this is in the age of television.
Mm-hmm.
And I can imagine the first time this hit television, it probably splashed.
Oh, I would think so. It was
this was
different time.
This was re-released with Vertigo in a double feature, and then it was re-released again with Psycho as a double feature. They didn't play Vertigo as a double feature with Psycho. They chose this.
Well, I do think this is one of the more universally popular. Especially since Vertigo back in the day was not one of the more recognized. Which I actually like that one quite a bit. I know.
Vertigo?
Yeah, I know. It's like, wow, you're on an island there, Dave. But although when my grandparents had both Vertigo and Rear Window and The Birds, blah, 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 there were quite a few of them. And I saw Vertigo in a similar time frame, and I did not enjoy that near as much as Rear Window back when I was, 12. Which makes a lot of sense. Took me a while to get so messed up to really recognize it and enjoy it.
The pan here. I can tell you.
Yeah, the camera work is pretty amazing, and the storytelling is excellent.
I can tell you, as someone who has worked with cameras with telephoto lenses, to swing that around and find your subject is not easy. The only thing that I can liken it to is scoping in Call of Duty games. Like if you're in your scope, you're not going to find anything unless you're just truly familiar with your environment.
Or trying to track something, with a telescope.
Right.
And this is a pretty cool effect here where the reflection of the apartment complex is in the lens. Since this whole thing is artificial, that had to be a fairly tricky effect that they do very well.
You constantly see the reflection in the lens, and it's just so incredibly difficult to do that. Because you have to put that on with a light source.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make sure that whatever's reflecting in it is lit up so that it's going to do that. And again, we already talked about how in Technicolor, you can have sharp or you can have color. You can't have both. So it's not going to be sharp.
No, but it's also remarkable attention to detail, which we've also referenced quite a dozen times.
For everybody at home watching with us who is under the age of 40, what Jeff is holding there is called a phone book. And it has a list of telephone numbers. And what you would do is you would go in on the white pages particularly by last name, and it would give you the name that you're looking for, the person you're trying to contact, and it would give their address, which you could confirm, and their phone number so you could call them direct.
And you could be delisted, but you had to pay extra.
You had to pay extra to be delisted every year.
Otherwise, you were being automatically doxxed.
And these phone books were huge. They were 5 or 6 inches thick sometimes. And they were free. They were put on your doorstep for free every year.
And it was kind of an exciting time. Wow, we sound old. Wow, we are old. And then you got to sit on them so you could reach your plate at the dinner table.
Or the pedals in your car when you're driving trucks and you're underage. Hitchcock further reinforces Jeff's ambiguous feeling towards women and sex by frequently intermingling references to sex with references to violence and murder. One of Truffaut's most often quoted and enduring observations of Hitchcock is that he filmed murders like love scenes and love scenes like murders. When Truffaut noticed that the word love is used in reference to so many emotions, dark as well as light, in The Birds, Hitchcock responded, "It just goes to show you that, with a little effort, even the word love can be made to sound ominous." It is, of course, typical of Hitchcock to see ominous shading in happy moments and to see the appealing quality of dark impulses. Like Dostoevsky, he was acutely conscious of the push for power inherent in love and the strangled, pathetic love inherent in certain acts of violence. Yeah, I always get it when people drop Dostoevsky, don't you? I just got
absolutely
a running narrative of Dostoevsky in the back of my mind all the fucking time.
It's one of your pastimes.
Yes. Reggie Nalder, who played the assassin in a 1956 version of The Man Who Knew Too Much, recalled Hitchcock advising him to look lovingly at the man he was going to kill, as if you're glancing at a beautiful woman. Well, this goes back to that George Carlin joke of if you switch the word fucking and killing every time you read a movie line, you would have a different movie, right?
Oh, for sure.
All right, Bill's going to come over and fuck you. And he's going to fuck you good. A little foreshadowing there with the flashbulb.
Chekhov's bulb.
This camera pan up is, it just looks so simple. That's one of the things that I really appreciate about Hitchcock is he makes it look easy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that one famous scene in Notorious where he dropped that shot where he drops it from the top of the studio down in the middle of the staircase in the center of the foyer, and then and that focus puller, whoever was pulling that focus, was working so fucking hard to get that key in her hand.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the master shot of the decade.
But done so well, you almost don't even notice it.
The first time I watched it, I was like, how did they do this? And then the second time, it had almost less of an impact. And I remember being so astounded the first time I saw it. Mm-hmm. I was like, why do I feel this way? And then, of course, I watched it with Luke. Luke didn't even catch it.
Right.
I had to rewind it. It was like, no, you need to watch this shot again. He was like, well, what's so special about that shot? Like, dude!
Think about the equipment.
So then I explained it to him. Of course, if you ever want to go online, there's tons of photos of that set and that shot setup of that camera on the boom and everything, and it's incredible. And that was in black and white. This is in color. Like, this camera weighs 4 times as much. Oh my God! Have you seen Babylon yet?
I've seen the first half of Babylon.
Okay, the first 90 minutes. That's the only half that matters.
I believe you.
Yeah.
We were going to watch it, and it was like the end of the night, and we were just exhausted.
Yeah.
And that first, 60, 90 minutes.
Yeah.
That's pretty frenetic.
It's incredible.
So kind of wore us down.
Well, I just think about the camera being in the box in the studio.
Yeah, it was. But yeah.
Digging a hole. He's not there. There's the reflection in the lens again.
Mm-hmm.
This is back when people wore pajamas.
That's true.
Not T-shirts and sweatpants you got at Academy. Affordable sports and outdoors. That's not an ad. That's not an ad.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsorship.
Although, if they'd be interested in sponsoring the Super 70 podcast, I'm sure you would be interested in listening to their pitch. You could sell table tennis, no problem.
There's lots of things in Rear Window that you can get at Academy. Affordable sports and outdoors.
Have I told you how Academy is one of my favorite places to go to?
The one thing that
it's not just a store, it's a lifestyle.
The only thing that you can't get at Academy, Affordable Sports and Outdoors, is DVDs and Blu-rays.
Well, we should make our voices heard.
But that can change.
That can change. Sorry, we're getting close to the climax, so it is very distracting.
Yeah. Well, and I'm also going through the remainder of my notes. I don't want to miss anything. Do you think that Jeff focuses on his neighbors because he's not comfortable with Lisa?
I don't know if he focuses on his neighbors because he's not comfortable with Lisa, or if the reason he doesn't focus on Lisa is because he's fascinated with his neighbors, because his job is to be, this photographer, right? And it's not the job that makes him distracted. The job is what keeps him from being distracted. He always wants to be somewhere else. He always wants to be involved in something that he's not doing, right? Because all the things he talks about and the images that are shown are not everyday, normal activities. They're all spectacular or exotic or interesting, and he's trying to fulfill... Okay, never mind. We are now at the high point of the film.
Yeah, and I was going to say that it's typical Hitchcock. It's almost like he's playing like a shell game. He's got two things going on, and you're distracted by one while the main story's going on, because everyone just kind of forgets about Miss Lonely Hearts.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the original emergency, and now this has interrupted the emergency. And here, Thorwald's trying to put everything together.
He knows somebody's in there, or has been.
Yeah. And then, of course, this is the real impotent moment that Jeff goes into, is because he cannot help. He cannot get out of the chair. He can't do anything. He's getting more and more nervous as Thorwald starts roughing her up. You can see the pain in Stewart's face. It's incredible.
And it is, the kind of outdated acting that you don't see anymore, but it really works now.
Well, the things that he's doing with his mouth and his lips as he's emoting, people who don't think that Jimmy Stewart is a good actor just have never seen this film.
Who doesn't think Jimmy Stewart's a good actor?
No, I haven't heard of these
Okay,
people.
there is somebody, though.
There's got to be somebody
There's
out there.
that one guy.
They're on Reddit.
You're addressing him right now. Look, Frank, you know what the fuck you're talking about. Sorry.
That dude's not on Reddit. He's on TikTok.
No, you don't think he's on both.
Cops are at the door back when cops wore caps.
Well, we live in Texas. You have your DPS. They wear
This
cowboy hats.
This is true. You've got 3 generations of marriage here. You got the newlyweds, the middle-aged Thorwalds, the old dog couple, Jeff and Lisa, who are not married yet. It's like Hitchcock kind of showing you. I mean, Thelma's probably a widow. The cop is a bachelor.
Thelma.
The detective?
Thelma?
Thelma, the masseuse.
Yeah, no. They've been married a long time. She's not a widow.
Oh. Well, there went that theory.
Yeah, but that's okay. But it is one of those that they're one of the few that have a... This is my favorite part. When Thorwald...
When he looks into the
he's
camera
like,
and he
"Wait a
breaks the
second."
fourth wall. Oh, my God.
I mean, I think that's when I was watching this movie as a kid that I was pretty much like really drawn in. Like, this is one of the best things I've ever seen.
Like, oh, shit.
Because I imagine when you saw it in the theater, right? I don't know how packed your theater was.
It was full house.
Because I suspect at that point, it was just like, you could almost feel tension.
There were women in the audience that were like, oh, because there were people there who had never seen it before. Because, like me, you've seen it and you take your spouse.
Right.
But, I mean, I was probably the youngest person in the audience. Which is sad. But, I mean, this movie is 70 years old. I mean, I saw it for the 70th anniversary. And I can't believe that cinema is, if you think about it 100 years ago, 1925. Fuck, like Potemkin came out in 1925. Detective Doyle. He's just trying to just speak as fast as he can. It's the urgency, the sense of urgency that Stewart has here is great. And before Thorwald shows up, if anybody has the time, go on YouTube and watch Jimmy Stewart being interviewed by Johnny Carson on the Johnny Carson Show about 1978. And they're talking about what it was like to work in the golden age of Hollywood and show up to set every day and not know what you were doing. Today you're going to be a cowboy. Today you're going to be a bartender. Today you're going to be a sailor. Today you're going to be... Stewart, I was schizophrenic. I'm a cowboy, and now I'm bussing tables.
And today you're going to be put in a body cast for the next 3 weeks.
Right? I mean, the physical acumen that Stewart must have had, like I don't remember how long the shoot was. It could not have been over a month. Not if they had one reel of outtakes.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm sure that's not real. That's a false number, but I suspect it was a pretty efficient shoot.
Well, Hitch was dependent on the star system because the cinema was based on situations, not characters. And with his view of, actors are cattle, he really relied on the Hollywood star system to prop up his stories. If he didn't have like preordained, he was like a stereotype caster, right? Give me this, give me a pretty girl, give me a detective. Like everyone kind of fits that stereotype. Perry Mason as a murderer because he's big and husky.
Well, I guess. I mean, I've never really thought about it like that, but it is one of those that he had a type for almost
everything.
Most of his movies, right? He didn't stay exclusively with the same stars, but he did. There was a lot of repeats. Jimmy Stewart, Cary Grant. I mean, they were in at least 4 each.
Peter Lorre was in 2, I think. I mean, that's not a knock on him.
No. It's not. It's not. But it's one of those things where he used the star system to about as well as it could have been done. He found the stars, and when he found one that worked, he wanted to run with it every time.
And this is the last 10 years where you're going to be able to do that.
Yeah,
because after
for better and worse.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Grace Kelly was in at least 4. Dial M, Rear Window, To Catch a Thief.
Dial M is incredible.
So, But, and now the true climax, although the part where Lisa's in the apartment, you can't beat that tension. I mean, this sequence here where Thorwald's breaking into the apartment to assault Uncle Jimmy, while it's pretty good, it's not near as stressful.
Somebody wrote that Thorwald was Hitchcock's knock on David O. Selznick because, he worked for Selznick for a few pictures and they hated each other. He banned Selznick from the set. I've heard so many stories about Selznick being such an ass. Here's the finale with the flashbulbs, which really took me by surprise. I did not see this coming. I was thinking like, how is this guy going to get out of it?
Yeah, and it's kind of silly, but it makes sense.
Well, and this is another one of those things that, I don't know if it hasn't aged well or not. I don't think it matters, but people don't remember flashbulbs. You had to attach a flashbulb to your camera if you wanted to do anything over a certain range on your light meter. Mm-hmm. And there were cameras back then you either had a light meter in your hand that was battery operated that you tested the room with before you chose your flash, or you had the light meter on the camera in certain models starting in the 1970s. I know this is really intricate shit that doesn't matter for anything that we're watching, but back then, if you got hit with a flash bulb, it would fucking blind you. This stuff was really, really bright.
Super bright.
And the phosphorus that came, particularly in the 1930s and 40s when you did that, the phosphorus would hit the ground and people would walk over it and crack it. And, janitors hated shit like that in courthouses and stuff like that. There's the one movie, I don't remember what it was. It actually showed people walking over the phosphorus on the floor. Really healthy, really healthy. And he waits until the last minute to set that one off. And here, Burr's like, he's got to adjust his eyes.
Yeah, I mean, it seems unrealistic to the modern viewer, right?
Yeah.
Because if you think about a flash from an iPhone, it is not even close to the same as one of these, especially with the reflector, where it would be blinding.
Well, I remember specifically, like, there's footage of Al Capone coming into the courtroom out of his car. He's leaving his car, getting in the courtroom, and there are flash bulbs going off. And the film, it's like the film goes through a seizure because the film has too much light, so it whites out several times while he's moving 30 or 40 feet across. And this is during daylight. So they knew that they weren't going to be able to get that image without that. They didn't give a shit about the cameraman. And here's the fight scene. Like, how do you choreograph a fight with somebody in a cast? This is so rough. And Jeff is just helpless. He's impotent, Dave. He's impotent.
I guess maybe that's right. Okay, maybe I'm going to take it all back.
In this scene here, like, they had the Hans Gruber cut of him falling. It was
there is a very Hans, and the cranked up camera
I
illustrates
hate that.
me. It always takes you out.
Yeah, I wish he didn't do that. I understand what he's doing.
Right.
Here, just toss a gun. Oh, my God. And you actually thought he was going to take the shot. Maybe, oh, my God. Jesus. The watch. Ellis, you son of a bitch, tell him I don't know you. And his other femur is broken.
Yeah, now he's handling it quite well, but not for a search warrant now.
And here the cop just came back from,
Where was he? He's wearing a tuxedo.
He looks like James Bond. He just came out of the casino.
Well, he's at least Felix Leiter.
At least. No, that's Felix Leiter in the hat. Right there. With the red tie. I don't want any part of her. And then she realizes what she said. Mm-hmm. Thermometer is now dropping to about
it's no longer 100.
70 degrees. Right.
Miss Lonely Hearts may have found some love. Maybe.
With the composer. They're going to listen to music. There's that big-ass bottle of wine there on the left.
And that is a badass friend's apartment.
It is. My eyes. We got to paint this apartment and get all the bloodstains off the wall.
New puppy?
Yep. There's Lonely Hearts. and her husband / boyfriend who just got back from Korea.
Yep.
Yeah.
Stanley.
And it says, caresses, I'm burning for it. Wait.
And he just...
What's my army done to you?
He's such a dorky dude. He's like starving.
The army has not fed him.
No.
And then the artist is asleep. This is a wonderful pan. Like, everybody's okay. They're actually sitting down and not fucking for a change over the.
But now they're fighting, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And Jeff he's not going anywhere for a couple days.
2 cats on his.
But he's happy.
And this is the shot that kills. This is when I think of this movie. This is what I think of.
He's wearing her jeans.
Beyond
nice but reasonable shirt. Beyond the high Himalayas.
Yeah, with that hair. Oh my God, that hair.
And it's like, yes, but bizarre.
Harper's bizarre. And the woman in the picture, although she's brunette, kind of looks like her.
Kind of looks like kind of similar colored shirt.
Credits. A Paramount picture.
And man, I miss credits like this. Boom.
Yeah.
Done.
Boom.
Out.
It's thin.
PG. Done. Get out.
Dave, thanks for watching Rear Window with me.
Oh, thanks for having me and acquiescing to my desire.
Absolutely.
To watch the movie.
Thanks for hanging out with Dave and I while we watched Rear Window. You can find the Super 70 podcast wherever you find podcasts, and most recently on YouTube. You can find me, my books, and my blog at www.thatdylandavis.com. I am at That Dylan Davis on Threads, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky. I'm Dylan Davis, and we'll meet next time, probably in LA.
talking about the Russian filmmaker.
The power of film, that's how strong film can be. Well, I did the production section for Encyclopedia Britannica for the last edition, and in it I describe a scene such as in the picture Rear Window, where you have James Stewart, a close-up of him, and he looks, you see, and you cut, well, say, for example, a woman nursing a baby. Now you go back to Mr. Stewart, and he smiles. So what have you demonstrated? That he's a nice, benevolent gentleman. Now take the middle piece of film away. He looks, he sees. Now cut to a girl in a bikini, and he smiles. Now he's a dirty old man.
And it's the exact same smile.
Exact same smile, the same look. The subject is changed.
And you said that there's even a more dramatic example. That was the Russian filmmaker who showed an actor's face and then a dead baby, and then the actor's face,
yes,
and then a bowl of soup, and then the actor's face. And in each case, it was the same shot of the actor's face, but in the one seemed to be sorrow, and the other seemed to be hunger.
Hunger, that's quite true, yes.
So you could get an Academy Award performance for an actor with only one shot.